After the reveal trailer for Doom the Dark Ages, we got to see a lot of spicy new material for the game. The gameplay mechanics, enemies, environments, and of course the main focus, the weapons. The weapons that the Doomslayer wields in each Doom game are iconic to say the least. Whether it be the Super Shotgun or the BFG 9000, each weapon has its unique ability and strategy. The weapons in Doom Eternal were perfect for the fast-paced action shooter that it was, but with the Dark Ages, the game is meant to be more grounded and pack a bigger punch. In this video, I wanted to discuss the current weapons that were revealed and talk about the potential weapons that haven't been shown yet that we could possibly be using once the game is launched. If you're new here and love everything Doom related, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below which is your all-time favorite weapon from all of the Doom games. Alright, let's get going. With how powerful the Doomslayer already is, he could easily go through each game ripping and tearing each demon he comes across with his bare hands. However, sometimes using the correct tool for the job makes everything a little bit easier, and in the case of a Doom game, a bit more satisfying. Doom the Dark Ages is setting the tone to be darker and grittier than before, as well as making the Slayer more of a tank than a fighter jet. The trailer revealed just how brutal his weaponry will be this time around. Melee options are a big focus in this game by means of the shield saw, flail, and some good old-fashioned kicks to the ribs. The shield is not only meant for defense, but allows room for other strategies. Like I mentioned in my breakdown video of the trailer, the shield is capable of blocking incoming attacks, throwing it at enemies, using it to slam into the ground from above, dashing into enemies, and finally using it to parry, which I didn't mention before. Those are all of the abilities that we know of so far, but I wonder what upgrades could be applied to the shield when the game releases. Maybe we'll get to change the look of the shield by using other outfits, increase the lethality of throwing it, or maybe using it with glory kills. The trailer didn't really show glory kills unless you count the time the Slayer uses the flail on the Demon Rider enemy. The flail might be a replacement for the Doomblade. The blade was exclusively used for glory kills for the most part, and if the shield doesn't share that responsibility, then the flail most likely will. I hope we can also customize it down the road as well as a little bonus. There were plenty of different types of flails used in medieval times and other fantasy stories and movies, like the flail used by the Witch King of Angmar in Lord of the Rings. Who knows what other designs the Sentinels used throughout the Unholy Crusades. The kick, on the other hand, could potentially be the replacement for the blood punch. It was used once in the trailer against the Agadon Hunter type enemy, but didn't really do much except make the demon falter a bit. The blood punch acted the same way if you didn't have the blood punch ready to use. It was more of a useless punch, but once you had the meter filled, you could punch demons into oblivion. Hopefully we'll see more use of it in later reveals and how effective it can be on all demon types. The great thing about the Doom series is the wide use of guns to use for practically any strategy, range, and playstyle. Each game gives you the freedom to use the weapons how you want, whether you want to use the Super Shotgun for every kill, or use weapon combos or quick swaps to make an efficient strategy. One of the most popular new weapons that was revealed in the trailer was the Skull Smasher. This unique weapon allows the user to fire fragments of bones smashed up from demon skulls. To be specific, they look like zombie skulls, but you get the picture. This design is really unique to say the least. I imagine the ammo is replenished by simply killing demons, so there's not really a way to run out of ammo. There could be a specific ammo type, but I feel with how it functions it wouldn't make sense to do that. The weapon seems to be great with crowd control as it has a widespread shot and relatively quick fire rate. I think this gun will also be the replacement for the chain guns since they both pretty much act the same way. It would be odd though to have a Doom game without a chain gun. So it's possible that there could still be a chain gun, but if id Software is wanting to innovate and be different this time around, we may not be getting the iconic weapons that we're so used to seeing in every Doom game. There's still plenty of time to see other reveals and new gameplay of the Dark Ages, but don't get your hopes up if specific guns won't make a return. We of course could see alternate versions of the iconic weapons that the Night Sentinels used as well, much like the Super Shotgun that Marauders used in Doom Eternal. Another new weapon that was shown was what I thought to be the plasma rifle is actually called the Accelerator. In an interview with game developers Hugo Martin and Marty Stratton, Hugo mentioned that the accelerator is more like a shock rifle or SMG that shoots out shards of electricity. The fire rate is quick, and honestly, I think that this gun could potentially replace the chain gun instead of the Skull Smasher replacing it. The chain gun in at least Doom 2016 and Eternal appeared to shoot out ammo that was more like electricity or plasma than actual conventional ammo like other Doom games. So if anything, the accelerator is the fast-paced go-to weapon to use for the fastest DPS in the Dark Ages. Towards the end of the trailer, we saw a new weapon called the Rail Spike. This one uses long rails that pin demons to walls or could potentially go through multiple demons at once. In the trailer, it is used against an imp and pins him into a wall and isn't used anymore in the video. I feel that this weapon could potentially replace the Ballista, as that one used a beam full of Argent energy with a slow rate of fire, and the Rail Spike acts about the same. However, the Ballista might make a comeback since the lore mentioned it being used during the Unholy Crusades. It'll be interesting to see what upgrades can be applied to the Rail Spike, but now that I'm thinking about it, it could be very possible that id Software doesn't do any weapon mods this time around. It would be odd, but with how different the Dark Ages is going to be compared to previous titles, things might be different. I guess we'll see what happens, and I hope I'm wrong with this. The only returning weapon that we have seen so far is the Super Shotgun. Much like each previous game, the SSG has somewhat of a redesign. This weapon features a lever action and flintlock style firing mechanism. Gone are the days of the meat hook, as this version will most likely make up for in firepower. Of course, it makes sense to slow things down a bit since the Slayer is more of a tank this time around and will be steamrolling his way through his enemies while protecting himself from damage with the shield. I can't wait to see what new features or mods that the SSG will receive once we get the game in our hands. So those are all the weapons that we know of so far, but what could we potentially be getting in the full version of the game? In my breakdown video, I mentioned the possibility of using the Demonic Crucible. The Sentinel version would be inaccessible at this time of the game since that would be embedded in the chest of a Titan, but the Demonic Crucible is one particular weapon that is up for grabs. It's possible that we play a level of the Invasion of Terras Nabad, but I doubt it. Of course, there are other versions of Crucibles that could be used since the Sentinels and Marauders have their own versions as well. If we do get to use the Crucible in the Dark Ages, maybe we can finally see the origin of it and see who gives it to the Slayer. Maybe the Wretch that is mentioned in Doom 2016 or Samur Maker. In order to keep the game grounded, the Crucible could be the superpowered weapon like the BFG 9000 that we can use. It's not overpowered since you would only get a few attacks from it, and you would have to get pickups to recharge it, much like the Crucible in Doom Eternal. Or there will be a totally new superpowered weapon that we will use in the Dark Ages. You could argue that both the Atlan and Mecha Dragon are among those options of super weapons. We most likely wouldn't use them in the sense of retaining them in our inventory, but towards the end of the game they would make use of taking out bigger and worse enemies. It's still tough to say if those two would actually be optional to use in a campaign, or they are part of the traversal and forces the player to use them. I know speedrunners are going to have a great time with those. If they are optional, then at that point they wouldn't be any different than using a BFG 9000. Let me know what you think about that. Other common weapons that have been used in Doom games would be a combat shotgun of sorts, a rocket launcher, plasma rifle, assault rifle, a BFG 9000, and of course recently grenades and or flame belch. However, like I mentioned earlier, it can be very possible that these types of weapons may not make the cut this time around. Of course, I'm just theorizing on this topic, but in all honesty, it does make sense. If the Slayer is using a shield on his left hand, then a combat shotgun that typically has a pump action would be out of the picture for sure. Yes, there could be a semi-automatic or full auto shotgun, but I feel that with the Skull Smasher as a weapon to use, why have another one that works about the same? Having the utilization of a shield with one arm and a weapon in the other makes it seem that weapons that can be held one-handed would be ideal. It still can be possible to have a rocket launcher or any other weapon that usually would be held with two hands be held with one based on however the design is made for them. I imagine id Software really thought this through and knew how to make good guns that will work well with a shield. In my honest opinion, I think there will definitely be a rocket launcher of sorts, as that kind of weapon would be important for the strategies that every Doom game promotes. Would we also use some kind of grenade or flame belch to help us get more armor or falter demons. Maybe a super weapon like the Unmaker, and definitely power-ups like the Berserker will make a comeback. I would love to see what you could do with a shield or flail and Berserker enabled. Complete annihilation. Either way, the future for Doom, the Dark Ages, is looking bright, or rather darker, and no doubt there will be plenty more reveals showing the complete arsenal of the Doomslayer. I hope you all enjoyed this video, as I have plenty more topics to discuss and theorize as we build more hype for the game. I really appreciate the support on the channel, and it's great being a part of this great community. Be sure to check out my social media accounts to see other things over there, and until next time, hope you all have a good one, and don't forget to rip and tear. Peace.